That would not be all right.
Let me make a prediction here. I'm in tune with the universe. Taxes ain't going down. That's the message I got. Well, good morning, friends, enemies, and people who have nothing to do on a Monday morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. Mr. George Myers on my left.
Good morning, y'all.
The producer, Mr. Jim Spodek, to my right.
Morning.
And I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. And we just had the election for, well, several races last Tuesday. And, boy, I didn't get the results that I wanted.
No.
Well,
it happens.
Yeah, but you know what? We never said that Corey Mason couldn't win an election. What we said was, he didn't know how to govern, and he continues to prove that. So what were the numbers here, Jim? We got a chart here that.
Well, on the mayoral, the official or unofficial numbers, or official numbers, I guess, was 62-43 for Mason and 24-17 for the write-in, which was Sandy Widener. Mm-hmm. They were, but there were actually 9,865 votes cast. So if you take the difference here, there's about 1,200 votes that are unaccounted for in that mayoral election.
People didn't vote in that election.
Either
they voted, but they didn't vote in the...
Or it wasn't counted. They may have made a mark on there and it didn't get counted for a write-in. Who knows? But I just want to come in and say, you know, just that whole write-in of 30% or better.
A write-in race in 2 weeks' time is
amazing.
Yeah, that really was huge for write-in vote, particularly of that size.
Yeah.
You know, when you get some of these smaller ones like the aldermanic races, that type of thing, yeah, you might get a little different percentages. But boy, to have one the size of the mayor's race in City of Racine, that's a lot for a write-in. That's very good.
Yes, it is.
And I think the more important thing that I liked, because I'm not favored in the way the city's being run, and for no one to have run against the current mayor, for him to just win 100% of the votes, is kind of a applause. It's saying, you're doing a great job. Yeah,
right.
Nobody wants to run against you. So write-in comes in and gets 30% of the vote. It says there's some problems. You know, people recognize, not that there are some problems. There were some problems regardless of the election, but people are recognizing that there's still something going on, and it's not just all go for what the current administration is doing.
So the bottom line is congratulations to Mary Corey Mason, and we wish you all the success in the world. We hope that you turn out to be a great mayor. We have our reservations about that, but we do wish you the best.
Oh, wish him the best.
Absolutely.
We have our reservations about whether it's going to happen.
Right.
Well, in order for the city to succeed, he has to succeed. And we also want to extend a sincere expression of gratitude for offering the voters a choice to Sandy Widener.
Yep.
And she came in at the last minute at the request of many, many people and stood up for the election, and it was a great election.
Yep.
It really was.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good to see that.
Appreciate that.
In the meantime, the Supreme Court was a wild race. That was a very wild race, you know, and
well, I pulled the numbers on that because
it's in a recount right now, right?
I don't think they're going to recount. Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Unless, the only way I've seen that many votes, 6,000 votes change, is one of the races. I forgot which one it was, but it was a state race, and one of the communities, they had left out a couple of wards or something like that, and they discovered all these votes.
Well, has Judge Nublar abandoned the idea? Because she was raising funds at one point there early on.
I think she has. Abandoned the idea of a recount.
Because if all the precincts are present and accounted for, you're not going to make up 6,000 votes.
Right.
No,
it was only in that one race where there were 2 or 3 precincts. Where the hell are they? You know, where are the rest of the votes? Right. And then you saw a change.
But what I want to kind of bring out is, since it's Racine County, I want to kind of, it was kind of stark, but the reason, the city of Racine, every ward, she won every ward in the city of Racine. She almost lost every ward outside of the city of Racine. I mean, it was a few exceptions.
There was
a couple exceptions. One was Wind Point and North Bay.
Yeah.
Well, North Bay is more of a Racine, and it was a total of 115 votes. But I mean, the fact is that west of Caledonia, Mount Pleasant, and west, I mean, she got trounced. And I guess it was a total of 21,000 votes. She received about 16,000, and the other, Brian received about 21, and it was a total of 36, almost 37,000 votes.
So it was about a 6,000 vote difference in Racine County, which is what it boiled down to statewide.
Yeah. But here's the thing, because we're in this show, we get a lot of stuff that, and I think the Democrats at this point are sending out, what happened? They're a little bit of shock because I think they figured that they were going to win this. I mean, we had talked earlier about the last Supreme Court race where I believe Dallet won by 10 or 12 percentage points. So I think they figured, well, Lisa Nublar is going to come in with basically the same kind of, I guess, Democratic, more liberal slate toward the Supreme Court, and she got beat. So one of the things that's slamming all over the internet right now is why? Why? And I want to kind of go back to the 1st Congressional District when you ran and Randy Bryce was running. Now, I'm not going to compare Randy Bryce to Lisa Nubauer, but the thing is, once you got into that county, you realized that Randy Bryce was never going to win that. And we knew that. We knew that way before that. But they pumped $8 million, $9 million into Randy Bryce.
If anything, my presence in the race helped him in terms of numbers. Yeah. Because I think I took more votes that would have gone to Stile than I took that would have gone to Bryce.
And then we bring in this race with Lisa Nubauer and this, whatever his name, Brian
Hagedorn.
Yeah. I could, and we talked about this last week. Before the last week's show, we were going to bring up this and talk about, the possibility of her losing because, I brought it up. I said, you're not going to attack, he brought up the part that he was founded a Christian school and he had some Christian beliefs that, nothing against the law there. But I think that's what sparked that county. And I think they said, you know what, wait a second here, we're gonna really look at this race. I think it was a big struggle because I think people looked at this and said, do we really want to lean this to the conservative side with this Brian winning? And so I think it was a real struggle for a lot of people. But I think in the end, they said, you know what, we're not, the negative on Brian, I don't care how you look at it. I mean, it's still not against the law to have those beliefs. But
well, the problem that Nubauer tried to raise, and apparently unsuccessfully, was that the beliefs that he holds could lead to prejudicial decision on his part on the court.
But here's the thing.
There was no proof of that, but I mean, there was certainly that possibility.
I agree.
So,
but here's the thing. There was no legal... There was no the court case that said he screwed up here. He leans in this direction, or there was nothing.
You're talking about a court case in which he made a decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of took this thing and threw it out there, and I think that's the basis of the Democratic Party, and I think that's their problem. They want to socially engineer. We're talking about a Supreme Court race.
Well, they both do, though.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm not giving any.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's unfortunate that it's gotten down to that, where it's like you're voting for some kind of position for the Supreme Court, some particular position on some particular social issue, and that's not the way it should be. It should be that the law is the law, and you vote for somebody whom you believe is going to enforce the law strictly as it is written. And what it's come to be is, well, I'm going to vote for somebody that interprets the law in the way that I feel it should be interpreted, and it becomes a very, very partisan thing. And
that's what we got now. We got Supreme Court races where we're talking about law, and we have millions of dollars pumped in from the two parties again, and I think it's a mess. Personally,
well, in the meantime,
I didn't like either candidate.
No, I wasn't particularly fond either. Yeah. But I mean, we've gotten beyond the social issues are used to drive the vote. But the fact of the matter is, there's an awful lot of corporate money that comes in on both sides to try and determine these races, and that's the real winner. The people with big money manage to have the biggest voice, and that's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, you'll go back to
it goes back to the congressional race too. I mean, the votes that we gathered with me as candidate were at the expense of approximately 50 cents per vote.
Yep.
Whereas the Democrat and the Republican, well, the Democrat we know spent about $58 per vote gathered.
Right.
Now, it's difficult to judge the Republican money total per vote because a lot of the money that was spent on his behalf was PAC money that was not officially tied to his campaign, but was very, very supportive of his effort. So, I mean, they spent big dollars on that campaign.
Oh my gosh.
Huge dollars. If we would have had $100,000, we should have got 100% of the vote.
Where every dollar that was spent on that campaign, I mean, it
was crazy money.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually did 10,000 votes, 3% of the vote. But here's the thing: that's the problem with an independent or a third party. They have huge uphill battle, and it's just it's completely stacked against you as a third party, bringing in a different alternative or a different voice.
Or a non-party.
Yeah, or a non-party. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very, very difficult.
Well, I think that basically even the Supreme Court, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan race, has gotten down to Democrat versus Republican. They know which judge is a Democrat and which judge is a Republican. Yep. And so the issue gets over this partisan contest rather than issues and qualifications and that type of thing.
And I think that's happening now locally too. I mean, I think what we got is Corey Mason comes out and says, "I am the Democrat in that first mayoral race." Well, it's a nonpartisan race, but I am the Democrat. Well, now you've separated that out, and now you're doing it in local races. And if you want to go to these local races a little bit, I mean, these were handpicked. A lot of them were handpicked by the Democratic Party or the mayor, or whoever, but they were backed and funded and put in. And this is what you got. And it's reached from the federal level to the state level. Now it's in our local level. And what happens here is that it becomes party-based rather than community-based.
Anyway, let's move on.
Right.
It was an interesting election, but we got something else here coming up, and that is the Harborside Development Financing Package, which is we found some interesting things in there, Jim.
Well, that was the big apartment or apartment complex right on the lake there, and it was touted as, well, here it is. This is going to. First of all, I'd like to point out, having been in real estate for a long time, that apartment buildings don't make the economy rich. I mean, that's just not the type of thing. We can't go around and rent from each other and have a successful economy. Right. Somebody's got to start making things to buy.
Well, the hope is that this housing is in service to a growing and successful economy.
Well, that's all. Yeah. If you don't have more people moving into
you don't have the manufacturing. You don't have this growing economy, but you're
not going to have renters. You're not going to have people that have money that can rent the apartment.
Yeah. Well, here's one of the statements, Mason, a big picture on this. This is the biggest redevelopment project we have seen in this city in probably a generation. I think that
sounds familiar.
Whoa.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. That was the same one that, remember,
the arena?
Dickert. No, it was the, well,
wasn't the arena the biggest thing?
No, it was Machinery Row.
Well, Machinery Row was $65 million. I think it was 65, and the arena was a paltry $50 million.
Right.
Well,
this is $50 million.
but if you talk to people who were familiar with that kind of project, they would say, "You can't do that for $50 million. It's going to be $125."
Well, I think the $50 million at the time might have been the biggest, and then it was even bigger when Machinery Row.
Bigger and better, George. Bigger and better.
Mind-boggling. Yes.
Yeah. That was the whole key to the success. We have to do something really big in the city. We've been taking all these little puny little projects, Delta Hawk and some of them are just little things.
Yeah, who the hell needs roads that don't have holes in them? Who needs their garbage picked up? What we need is a hockey rink.
And a big one, yeah. That's
okay. Well, anyway, we
looked through this
the agreement.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that kind of stick out. One of them, well, we can kind of review the fact that it's $3 million, the land of the old Walker site, being sold to Harborside LLC for $3.25 million. For now, they're purchasing the land, and they're going to make payments starting in December 1st of 2020 at roughly $160,000 a year, a one-time payment every year for 15 years.
14
years, and then on the 15th year, they're going to pay off the balance of the $1
million. So basically, we're, if you want to call land contracting the property to Harborside for 14 years.
Interest-free. It's an interest-free loan. Yeah.
And no interest.
Which is, you know, I don't really have an issue with that if it becomes a successful project, if they in fact come up with the financing and come up with a beautiful development down there, and they rent all the spaces out, they're successful, it's indicative
Yeah,
of
you
the
don't want to
city
throw
being
cold
successful.
water on a development.
No,
But they're going to
no.
start getting. You're going to start getting what 4%, whatever our property tax rate is, and you're going to start getting at that as soon as the building's up. If it's up in a couple of years, you're going to
Yeah.
be getting that. All
Yeah.
those 14 years, you're going to get all those hundreds of thousands that a year on taxes that right,
Well,
now
that's
you're
still
getting
14.
zero.
There's 14 years left on that. Was it TID? There's still,
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Oh, that's right. It's part of a TID.
Which is exactly what the loan...
Right. So, not the worst, I guess. We're not actually shelling out the money. We're actually selling the land to them. Great deal for them. I get it. But I guess the thing that really was, when we start digging into this a little bit deeper, we found the financing contingency. Now, you have to remember, this was when the big thing was that it's all private financing, and it's going to be a third-party financing, and not low income, and it's great to have a project on a lake that's not.
This will be located at 1129 Michigan Boulevard, the old Walker Muffler site. It's a city-owned 9.5-acre site that Royal Capital will be developing in the year to come. The development is a minimum $50 million investment. It'll consist of primarily market-rate residential 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments with internal parking and commercial space as well.
Definitely don't want the
Let me
city
read this,
financing.
because you're the guy that dug it out.
Yeah,
But I'm a better reader than you.
you are.
Financing contingency. Buyer's purchase obligations hereunder are contingent upon buyer at buyer's sole cost. In other words, they got to pay all of the financing costs. Obtaining third-party financing for buyer's development of the property, which financing shall be acceptable to buyer in buyer's sole
In
discretion.
other words, they get to
Stop
pick out the bank they're going to borrow the money
Now,
from.
this
and
is it.
that
There's
goes
no
in.
restrictions on, you can go low income, you can go HUD, you can go all that. So it has no restrictions on how that financing is coming about.
If somebody pays them to borrow money,
Right.
they're not obligated to take the loan.
Right.
If buyer does not terminate this offer on or before the expiration of the contingency period by sending written notice to seller within such period, stating that buyer's financing contingency under this section 4 will not be satisfied, this financing contingency shall be deemed waived.
That was a key thing.
Right there.
I think people out there now are going, what?
Why do those guys
What'd you
read
just
that
say?
stuff?
Buyer agrees to pay all customary loan and closing costs in connection with his financing and for any title insurance policy required by its lender. Basically, if you're wondering, what the hell does that mean? It's a gigantic escape clause for the developer. And I don't necessarily.
Well,
have a
here's the
problem
thing.
with that.
It's now if we
It's just
just
weird.
kind of break it down. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but they're supposed to close May 1st on the property. If that doesn't happen, they have 150 days to close within that, which would mean October the 1st.
And that's the
2008.
contingency period.
Right. That's the contingency
And
period.
that's set in stone. You have to done it. Should do it by May 1st is the first one, and if it's not done by October 1st, then
It
it's
should be
canceled.
done.
Right.
But the fact is that there's no real contingency on financing, because what they're basically saying is legalese. They talk like there's a contingency. There's no contingency.
No.
It basically says we're not going to waive the.
It says if you decide for any reason not to do this,
You're
okay.
out, and you don't have to
leave.
worry about financing, because we're
Yeah.
not going to kill the deal if you can't get the financing. We're going to keep it going for you.
We're not
you
going
know.
to penalize you in any way.
Right. So they're out there. So they've actually got till October 1st to look for financing. Now, again, I go back to the first part that talks about it's at their sole discretion, which means
Yeah.
there's no, when they talk about, there's nothing written in that contract to say that it doesn't have to be low income, and that group is pretty well entrenched in low income housing. So, throwing it out there. Whatever.
Well, what we and the viewers have to be aware of is that this is a similar scenario to what happened with Machinery Row, and the city council, in all its wisdom, decided to lend the money to the buyer.
Right. Once that contingency couldn't be met, then all of a sudden $4.5 million mysteriously ends up being borrowed to the Blackwell or the FDP to purchase the land at Machinery Row. So basically this is the same thing. This contingency is really a nothing. So what negotiations can happen between now and October 1st? So just be prepared. You might all, your wallet might be getting opened up.
Yeah, we don't want to hear anything like, well, they had a difficult time finding any financing that would meet their needs, and we have money available, so why don't we lend it to them?
We'll buy the front 40.
Funds are available.
We'll drive front 40 feet of the property, and then we'll get a loan from the DNR and put it up into a separate fund. So
you can't make this stuff up.
We'll put a duck pond out in the front there. We'll get money from Ducks Unlimited. That's what we'll do.
Anyway, I thought, it was a 30-page contract. We kind of went through it. There may be other things in it, I don't know, but that kind of stuff.
That was what was interesting. There's this big, huge stack of paper. It's a pretty thick contract. I think
Well, we wish these guys well. I mean,
and it looks very official.
They look like sincere guys, and I think they're really...
Well, they've done some projects. I mean, you can't say they didn't do the projects. They're in Milwaukee. But again, it's a whole.
Well, there's nothing final about this at all.
No.
It's just
way up in the area.
Here's what we'd like to do.
Right.
Give us.
My guess would be, if I'm going to take a guess at this, my guess would be Tony Evers is now governor. Mason and they're all all buddy. They're going to find some financing through some government program, be it HUD, be it WIDA, be it whatever, and they're going to run low income in there.
Man, it's going to be tough because so much of state available financing has come down into this county already. To try and sell the state on more money coming into Racine County for yet another development project, that's going to be tough.
So
my problem with the thing is, remember our peak population was at 95,000. We're down to about 79,000 now. So we've lost 20% of the population. Those are people that lived in properties that were in Racine. They lived in Racine, we're talking about. Not where they worked, where they lived. Now, when they're gone, that means you haven't seen 20% of our buildings, our residential buildings, torn down. They're all still there.
Right.
And some of them are decent houses and decent neighborhoods, and they've been sitting vacant for years. So as people move back in, they're going to have a choice between whether they want to move into a very expensive new building or whether they'd like to move into an older building that they can probably rent or buy for about half the price. And so the developer is going to be looking at that. They look at things like that. They really do. They can come out and make a no hooks in type of a deal there where they're not required to actually move it forward. They can go ahead and make something like that, knowing they can back out, and we'll do our studies to find out can we really put this kind of money into it.
Well, George, you talk about a population decline, but I'm not convinced. I mean, there are now 4 staff members in the mayor's office.
Yeah.
Now, it used to be like 1 person in the mayor's office, so an additional
there was
4.
there was no
That's a 400%
city
increase in the population just in the mayor's office. And are you telling me that the city itself has not been able to keep pace with this?
It was notorious.
With the stunning advancement that the mayor's made?
During remember that long recession during the Obama years? The only sector of the economy was growing was the public sector. Governments were growing across the country. Everything else was shrinking.
Yeah.
My concern is if the government steps in and is going to finance it, because that's exactly what the problem was at Machinery Row. We finally stepped in and financed it and ended up with the property, plus now the cost of tearing all the buildings down.
We got all kinds of other problems with it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
this is right now. It's I think it's still clean. There's no obligation there.
Right.
It's a nice dream right now at this point. That's all it is a dream.
What does laissez-faire mean? That means let the buyer beware. Is that the rough translation? So this is like let the seller beware, because you might become the buyer. I don't know. Well, let's move on.
Yeah. All right.
City shifting stormwater fee from property taxes to water bill. Alert! Alert! Your taxes haven't gone up, but your fees have. So now it's going to cost, what did we figure it was? It's going to be about $10 a month more?
Well,
that's on your water bill based on the current stormwater fee. Now the stormwater is that's just water runoff. That's
right.
that's
What
treated
comes
water,
off of
right?
your roof and goes down into the
Right,
gutter.
right.
And that's why if you've got a vacant piece of land, you're going to have the same
Right.
water runoff fee as a one with a building on it. In fact, it might be more.
Now, you know, one of the questions
What if,
I
wait a
had.
minute, what if we have a drought?
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I don't know if they figure in drought.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. What about why? Why do it? I mean, why move it from the tax bill to the water bill? I mean, my first thing was you got a cash flow problem. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But you need the cash on a more of a organized, you know, a regular basis, or
Well,
they
they
were
better
able to
not be
throw a
planning on replacing it with another fee, because
Well, that's
this does reduce the property tax by the amount of fee, and it transfers
well, it also
over to
looks
the water
good.
bill.
I reduced the property. Well, you really didn't, because you just moved the fee and you actually increased
Did the
taxes.
property tax actually go down?
No, they didn't. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they were able to raise it $5 a quarter. Number one. The thing that I think that's the most disturbing on this is, you know, this is the mayor that's like, you know, we're going to bring everybody to the middle class, but you just dropped a $10 a month fee on every tenant in the city of Racine. So
Well, that was interesting. Now, did anybody question about that?
No, they don't bring that
the
up.
tenants are going to. It's going to shift over to the tenants.
Yeah,
I mean,
this
I'm
became
a
a tenant
property
tax.
manager myself. I know
Yeah.
we're not going to try and extract that from the water bill and then bill
Well,
the
yeah,
tenant on the net.
it's on the water bill.
It's on
and
the water bill.
and the
You
tenants
divide the
typically
water
get
bill up.
water
That's
bill.
right.
Yeah.
So they have, you know, well, now you're paying for the water that's hit your gutter down to your rain gutter. So, I mean, it's going to be shifted over. I mean, you may find a little bit
I
here
want,
and there.
I want to see what happens to the rest. See, the tax bill levy. Let's call it that. Tax bill levy includes all the fees.
Right.
All right, you have the tax bill, and then there's this little column over here that's got the water runoff and the recycling fee and the various little other fees that might be on there. Now, if that fee just goes down, and the tax levy remains the same, your tax bill will go down by that amount.
Right.
About $120 a year
That's not going to
per
happen.
project. So we'll just see if that's
We'll
what
watch.
happens,
Yeah.
or if they're using that as an excuse to say, okay, we got now $123 here, we can shove something else in there. That
Yeah,
would be all right.
Let me make a prediction here. I'm in tune with the universe. Taxes ain't going down. That's the message I got.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see. Interesting to see what
Yes.
happens to that levy.
Yes, it will. Well, let's see. We got a coming attraction, don't we? What are we going to work on? Oh, the 10-year plan. Next week, folks. Mayor Dicker's 10-year plan.
George, I think you got it over there, don't you? We
Yeah.
just found it, you know.
Yeah.
It's on the side there.
We haven't had time
Yeah,
to go
here it
through
is
it
here.
yet, but
Yeah.
we're gonna go through this.
You know,
This
it's been
is
10 years.
we found the 10-year
10 years, yeah.
Better late than never.
So tune in next week because we got some information for you. And in the meantime, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've enjoyed this one, haven't you, George?
No, this is
Yeah.
a blast.
Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday. Thanks for being here.